Can I call the meeting to order, please? It is 6 o'clock and we are ready to start. Thank you. So the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and we have an apology from Councillor Regisford, who is being substituted by Councillor Max Morris. The next item on the agenda is election of chair for the council year 2024-25. Could I invite nominations for chair, please?
Can I nominate Councillor Lawrence Fairweather?
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Councillor Mary Clarkson, please.
Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. Are there any other nominations? So as there's more than one nomination, those nominated may briefly address the committee if they wish about why they wish to be chair. Does either nominee wish to do so?
Yes.
Colleagues, I'm standing as chair for planning because I think we need a fresh perspective on the way the planning committee functions. I've been a member of the planning committee for 3 years now, and in that time I've learned a great deal about planning procedures and the work of the committee, not to mention the infamous NPPF, which I know many of you find frustrating at times. If elected, I will attempt to make the committee more connected to the whole of the process and hopefully make decisions with more knowledge, particularly about large-scale developments. How am I going to do this? Well, I will work with officers to look at holding more informal briefings as defined in section 24.14 of the Constitution, which I feel has not been used nearly enough in the 3 years I've been on the committee. Secondly, I will work with officers to encourage more site visits where needed, so that members have a better feel for some contentious planning application or where understanding of the application can be enhanced by seeing the site in question. As chair, I will also ensure that all members are given the opportunity to contribute to discussions before we reach the final proposal stage. Thank you for listening, and I hope you will see a difference if I am elected as chair.
Thank you. Councillor Clarkson, did you wish to make an address?
Thank you. I've chaired this committee for a couple of 3 years, and I've been a planning committee member for some time. So I've got a very deep understanding of the way planning works and of our planning policies. I've been involved in the past in developing them. In chairing the meetings previously, I've tried to be fair to everybody. Sometimes I've had to chair fairly difficult meetings, and I've tried to do those calmly and fairly so that everybody has a say and that we're able to hear what the officers have to say. Those are my main points. As a planning authority, we've got a lot of huge changes coming up, and I think it's important that we have a chair who knows the policies really well and make sure that we abide by them, even making difficult decisions, and looks forward to the new local plan when that's adopted.
Thank you. So can I remind committee members that you may only vote for one nominee? So taking Councillor Fairweather, can those in favour please show?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
And Councillor Clarkson, can those in favour please show?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, so that is equal votes for. So the Constitution sets out that where there is a tie in the number of votes for nominee, lots will be drawn. So we will therefore have to proceed to the drawing of lots. If you can bear with me one moment. So I'll ask each nominee to take a lot, and the nominee that takes the paper that has chair on it will be elected as chair. So Councillor Clarkson is elected as chair for the municipal year. So we now need to go through the same process for election of vice chair. Are there any nominees for vice chair, please? Is there a seconder, please? Are there any other nominations? Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you. So again, you only have one vote per nominee. So can those in favour of Councillor Altaf Khan as vice chair, please show?
Can I just say something? As he proposed to me, and I understand the politics from across the other side, so I would withdraw my nomination.
Oh, okay. In that case, if there are no other nominations, then Councillor Fuweather is elected unopposed as vice chair for the municipal year. Thank you. And so I will ask Councillor Clarkson to take the chair, please.
Right, thank you, everybody. And can we move on to declarations of interest? Councillor Upton.
For a change, Oxford Preservation Trust haven't commented on either of these. I'm a trustee and a member, but Oxford Civic Society have on one of them, and I am a member, but a very passive member, and certainly take no part in any planning application comments. So coming with an open mind.
And what I should have done before then is to welcome new members to the committee. So I think Rosie, Max, I think you're the two new members, aren't you?
I'm just sitting in Diane.
Okay, well, yes, I know, but welcome, you know. Barbara's, yeah, but sort of returning, aren't you? Yes. So sorry, Barbara. Yes, I know you served on planning before. So thank you. Okay. We now move on to agenda item 5, which is the land at Bayswater Farm, and Mike Kent is
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share the screen.
Can everybody see? Everyone see a screen, okay? Yeah, sure.
We've lost it. Okay. So this is the site location plan. So the application site is a 7.16 hectare area of land located to the north of Sandhills. Site consists primarily of open undeveloped fields and has a rural character. We've got a public right of way which runs through the site, which is the Oxfordshire Greenbelt Way, which crosses the south of the site from east to west. Birdale Avenue and Dale Bush Avenue extend up to the edge of the site, connecting the site through Sandhills. So the application site crosses the boundaries of Oxford City and South Oxfordshire district administrative areas. So the dashed line on this plan indicates where the parameters of the Oxford City site, Oxford City area of the site lie. So it's the two areas adjoining Birdale Avenue and Dale Bush Avenue. So consisting of the two turning heads, whilst the vast majority of the site lies within South Oxfordshire district boundaries. So the application is in outline with all matters reserved. This is except for the proposed means of access into the site, which would consist of the two accesses proposed from Dale Bush Avenue and Birdale Avenue. As noted in the committee report, it's only within the City Council's remit to determine the acceptability of the parts of the development which fall within the City Council's area. So this does include cumulative impacts such as impacts of traffic generation. An application was submitted to SODC and planning permission was refused on 10 grounds. A full copy of the delegated report is included at Appendix 2 of the committee report, and the reasons for refusal are also included in the main body of the committee report before you. So this shows the indicative site layout. So permissions sought and outline for 121 dwellings, a care home, associated landscaping and public open space. The application is in outline. So this site layout here is indicative and not fixed. So as noted, there are the two proposed accesses going into the site within the Oxford administrative area. The accesses are shown in some more detail on the further slides. So the development site is included within the South Oxfordshire local plan under site allocation Strat 13. So the parcel forms part of the larger lands north of Bayswater Brook allocation, which is currently subject of joint planning applications submitted to OCC and SODC. And that applications for 1,450 homes, 120 assisted living units and commercial and community uses. So under the site allocation policy, the sites are together expected to provide a minimum of 1,100 homes. The site policy doesn't specifically say how many homes should be provided within the particular parcel of the site to the north of Sandhills. SODC have confirmed within their delegated report that the application complies with the adopted South Oxfordshire plan in terms of the principle of development and acceptability of houses going on the site. However, as noted in the report, South and Vale are in the process of preparing a joint local plan, which is at Regulation 18 stage. This is a consultation stage, and it's been recommended in the JRP that the application site be deallocated. This is primarily based on the suitability of obtaining access into the site. The JRP, however, is not at a sufficiently advanced stage. This can be afforded sufficient weight where assessing it against the merits of the planning application at the current time. So accounting for these factors, the principle of development in terms of siting housing on the site is considered acceptable at the current time. Move on to the proposed plans for the accesses. So these are the parts of the site which do fall within the City Council's remit to consider. So this is the access from Birdale Avenue. So it involves a reconfiguration of the road, removal of the turning head, provision of a new section of 5-metre road, pavements either side. So the road would cross the adjoining public right-of-way before continuing into the site. The public right-of-way, as noted, falls outside of Oxford's administrative area. So considerations in relation to the impact on the amenity of the right-of-way are not considerations for the City Council to take into account. This slide here shows the proposed access from Dalbush Avenue. So it's nearly identical in design terms. Key point to note is in respect to this access is that it involves the removal of a large prominent Norway maple tree. It's a good quality category B tree, and the roads surrounding Sandhills are characteristically tree lined, and this tree provides an important contribution to the wider character of the area. It's been outlined that a replacement tree planting could be provided in Dalbush Avenue to mitigate the loss of the tree. However, the feasibility of this has not been demonstrated, and any replacement planting would need to be in Dalbush Avenue rather than within the wider site to mitigate the harm to the character of the area. Going through these slides here, some photos showing the proposed accesses. So this is the Birdow Avenue access. And this is the Dalbush Avenue access, which shows the Norway maple tree in the centre of the image. And another image here showing the tree in relation to the adjoining public right of way. And this image here showing the tree in relation, this is taken from the adjoining field, showing the access or site of the proposed access into the site. So into the loss of the tree and lack of suitable mitigation, it's considered that the development would be contrary to policy G7 of the Oxford Local Plan. In respect of both accesses and in respect of the impact on the surrounding roads leading to the site, County Council has advised that there's no provision for on-street cycling infrastructure, and as such the developments would be contrary to policies M1 and M2 of the Oxford Local Plan and the relevant paragraphs of the NPPF. Report also outlines several issues raised by County Highways in respect to the methodology applied in the transport assessment. This is in terms of how the trip generation is assessed, junction assessment methodology, and highways impact assessment. So given the various faults which are explained in further detail in the report, it's considered that the transport assessment cannot be relied upon, and therefore it has not been demonstrated that developments would not have a severe impact on the surrounding road network. Developments are considered contrary to policies M1 and M2 of the local plan, relevant provisions of the NPPF. So in summary, whilst the public benefits of the developments, in particular provision of housing, are acknowledged, it's considered that these would not outweigh the overriding harms in respect to the impact on highway safety, lack of suitable access, and the removal of the mature tree. So the application is recommended for refusal for the reasons outlined within the report.
Thank you, Mike. Now, I understand that we don't have any speakers against, but we have got 2 people speaking in favour of the application. So if you could come forward, please, and you have got 5 minutes in which to address the committee. Thank you. Thank you. Just say who you are. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Ruben Bellamy. I'm a town planner and I act for the landowner Sildara Limited. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My reason for addressing you this evening is to ask that you defer consideration of this application to allow the applicant to address the issues identified and undertake any further necessary work. This is an allocated site allocated to meet the needs of Oxford City that will provide 50% affordable housing. As we all know, this country is in the middle of a housing crisis, and that this crisis is particularly acute in successful cities like Oxford. The affordability ratio for the city is 11.9, one of the highest in the county. And as of the 1st of November 2023, there were 3,401 households on Your Housing register. The average waiting times for an affordable property for households on the register are long: 4.8 years for a 1-bed, 3.7 years for a 2-bed, 5 years for a 3-bed, and 6.2 years for a 4-bed. It is already the case that the housing delivery trajectory for the strategic sites allocated to meet Oxford's needs will not be met. This site is a small part of the much larger Strat 13 allocation. It is of a scale that can deliver homes within the next 5 years. In addition, we have submitted evidence of the large and increasing need for care home accommodation, which reduces pressures on GPs and the NHS and frees up family housing. Turning to the reasons for refusal. Reason 1 refers to the lack of sufficient detail. we are happy to work with officers to provide the required detail. Reason 2 refers to the decide and provide guidance. Our consultants considered that their transport assessment was based on this guidance, but again, we would welcome the opportunity to fill in any gaps in the assessment that officers have identified. Reason 3 refers to a conflict with LTN 120. This is because there isn't room for a segregated cycle lane in Delbush and Birdall Avenues. However, LTN 120 allows for quiet mixed traffic streets to form part of cycle networks. This is set out in paragraph 4 on page 20, paragraph 3.4.1 on page 24, and table 4.1 on page 33 of that document. Again, we would welcome the chance to put our case that the proposals do in fact comply with LTN 120 and your policies that flow from that. Reason 4 relates to the lack of a Section 106 agreement, and we have no objection to entering into a Section 106 agreement. Reason 5 refers to the loss of the highway tree. This is a new matter not raised at pre-application stage, which is why direct mitigation was not proposed in the application. There are options to mitigate the impacts of the loss of this tree. These include planting new trees in Delbush and Birdall Avenues, planting new trees close to the entrance, the planting of over 300 trees within the development, and also using the County Council's CAVAT valuation, which provides financial compensation based on the amenity value of a tree. This money is used to plant new trees, typically 50 per lost tree. Again, we would welcome the opportunity to explore these mitigation opportunities with your officers. One matter not within your boundary that might be brought up in the debate is the unregistered bridle way. We have taken advice from a leading QC and submitted his opinion that there is a legal mechanism for dealing with this issue. The county have neither commented on or countered this legal advice, so I'd like to be very clear on this point. It is incorrect to state that the site is not legally deliverable, and that is the reason for proposed deallocation. We appreciate that local people and the County Highways team are still unhappy that the site was removed from the Greenbelt. However, those in principle objections were heard by the local planning inspector, who decided that the site should be allocated and that access should be from the local road network. It is our view that all the authorities involved should be striving to deliver this allocated site that lies within an area of acute housing need, a site that is ideally located for the employees of all the hospitals in the Headington area. So I would ask members to defer consideration of this application, given the willingness of the applicant to try and address the areas of concern. This is the approach being taken with the Dorchester Living application on the larger part of Strat 13, who are being allowed to submit updated information and amend details. All we ask is for the same consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Committee, do you have questions? Councillor Hongsworth.
Yeah, it's a question for officers, and it relates to the interaction between this application and the SODC application, and picks up one of the points made by the applicant just now. In paragraph 6.3, the SODC reasons for refusal are listed, and item 1 relates to this issue of the bridle way. Now, notwithstanding the QC's advice, which isn't in front of us, and I wasn't going to get into that, the presentation which you just gave seemed to suggest that because the bridle way is just outside of the boundary, we should remain mute on the issue of the bridle way, which is the number one reason, or the first reason, sorry, given for the refusal in SODC terms. But thinking of this application on its own, in essence, the application in front of us is for 2 little stubs of road and a tree removal, and would so serve no purpose other than to access the site. And so it does seem to me to be a bit odd not to refer to that reason for refusal, particularly as seems likely both any decision we make plus the SODC decision are likely to be appealed, as well as the ongoing local plan debate over the deallocation, which all revolve around the same issue, essentially. So is there not sense in including that reason as one of our reasons for refusal, if only to bring the 3 things into line with one another? At the moment, we would appear to be slightly different to the SODC decision on the planning application and the debate that the two councils are making about the local plan allocation. So that was quite technical, but I think it's quite important.
Mike, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I think the view, and Jane might want to add to this as well, was that the bridle way fell outside of our boundaries, so therefore is technically not within our remit to consider. I understand what you're saying, that the accesses are heading in that direction, and it can only they can only be there to serve the site, but it is technically within outside of our boundaries. So I believe is the case that we shouldn't be considering the impact on the bridle way.
Thank you, Chair. Because officer's view is this does fall outside the boundary, there's been no further investigation into that the legal point and the reason for refusal that South Oxfordshire District Council have given on that point. And they seem to be supported by the Highway Authority in terms of that reason for the refusal. So I would advise members that if they were considering including that against officer, that additional reason for refusal against officer advice, that they shouldn't do so without a deferral, because we haven't seen the legal advice and we haven't seen the substance of that. So obviously, if this council was including that reason for referral, it could expose itself to costs on any appeal in imposing that. And that's obviously, although you shouldn't consider a cost, that's not a material consideration. It's something that I'll have to advise you of. So there's obviously, it's not something that so there's 2 points here. The reason for refusal is not something that officers are recommending that you should consider. If you went against that advice and wanted to include that reason for refusal, I would caution that you should have the benefit of legal advice first. I haven't seen the legal advice. I can't advise further on it because as officers consider it's not within the remit. So I would advise that if you were considering that, you should defer it. But the officer advice is not to include that reason for refusal for the reasons explained by Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Andrew, you want to come in?
The thing I would say, Chair, is that we haven't included specific reference to the bridle way, but the first reason for refusal, which talks about there isn't sufficient detail to demonstrate that there's suitable access through our land, is in there in reason for refusal 1. And then we have got the reason for refusal 5, which deals with the loss of the tree. So we do capture the essence of points that are in that first reason for refusal of the South Oxon scheme, other than we just don't mention specifically the bridle way. So I would say it is captured.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's very comprehensively. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, either for planning officer or for the applicant stage? Don't see any, in which case then we can move into debate. I'll just remind members that as Alex did outline, all we are essentially considering are the 2 access points which are in Oxford City Council area. We are not commenting on the wider planning application which South Oxfordshire has refused. So that is what we are considering. But South Oxfordshire District Council's refusal is in fact a material consideration for us. Do you want to just outline why that is, Mike? Just explain that.
I mean, well, they are determining planning authority for the application that falls within their boundary area, and they've assessed it on planning grounds and consider that the development should be refused. So I'm not quite sure what else to add to that, but
thank you. Okay, Councillor Upton.
It is coming back to a bit of a question really actually for officers. So if the access to this was really good and we could get the section 106 sorted out and everything, then it would be great to have these extra houses near to Oxford and with a care home as well. I know SODC's affordable housing at 50% is much weaker than ours. In fact, in that the social housing component within that is much smaller than within ours. So it wouldn't be that many more social homes. But but it's a really easily accessible site to getting into Oxford for cycling and walking buses. So if there was a way that the developer sounds like they would like to engage and try and find a way around the reasons for refusal, if there was a way for that to happen, then I think that would be a good thing. And just if we if we refuse this now, does that make it particularly more difficult for them to?
Is this a question? Is there a question at the end of this?
Yes, sorry, I suppose, yes. So do you think we would be, if they could get around these things, is this something that you would be more likely to recommend approval for? That's probably, maybe you can't answer that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think my point on this is it's our duty as officers to make a recommendation on the application that's before us, not considering what potentially could be done to the scheme. Of course, there's the option for the application to be resubmitted, the chance to review the new information with a fresh pair of eyes. So that's always an option. I think the duty really is to consider what's before us.
I mean, that is the key point. I mean, in terms of the points about deferral, I can't see any value in that. The application at South have considered their application with quite comprehensive reasons for refusal. We've followed that up with some reasons for refusal, concerns about the development on our side of the fence. There wasn't pre-application discussions with us, with the City Council. We're not engaged prior to the submission of this application. I'm aware there might have been some pre-application discussions with the county and also with South, but certainly not with the city. So I don't see any reason to defer the application to try to address the points that we've raised. And I would suggest we just determine it as on the basis of what's put in front of you.
Okay, any other, Alex? If we don't, have we got any more questions at this stage? In which case, let's move into debate. Alex?
Yeah, I'd like to recommend approval of the officer recommendations to refuse for the reasons given. Briefly, I was always slightly surprised that SODC allocated this site in the first place. And clearly the fact that they're trying to deallocate it now might be a bit of buyer's remorse, but that's their problem to sort out. What we need to resolve is the application in front of us, as Andrew has said. The reasons for refusal are there in black and white, and I'm happy to support them. Clearly, a future application could potentially overcome them, but that's not for us to determine now, and it's up to the applicant to decide what they want to do. So I would like to recommend refusal for the reasons there. And as a final passing comment, and I'm not muddling up LTN 120 with LTNs. I'm deliberately saying LTNs here. I used to represent Sandhills as a councillor. It's a delightful designed LTN. Obviously, this would make it much less of an LTN. And I'm just curious, to idly speculate how many people live in Sandhills don't realise it's an LTN, one of the hated LTNs. But anyway, there we are. Yes, I recommend refusal for the reasons given without adding anything, having been severely ticked off for even thinking about it.
So we have a proposal on the table to accept the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder for that? Excellent. Councillor Altaf Khan. In which case, then, shall we vote on the recommendation? All those in favour of the recommendation to refuse, and that's refusal on as outlined in the report without any additional. Okay, that's unanimous. No votes against. Thank you on that. And we now move on to item 6, which Jennifer's going to represent.
Thank you, Chair. So before I begin my presentation, I have two verbal updates to make. One with regards to SIL. My report states that the amount payable would be £852,980.70, but having sought clarity from the SIL team, the correct amount would be £170,555.70. The second update is with regards to the EA. They submitted their response earlier today, and they do not object to the proposal subject to conditions in relation to a remediation strategy, piling, boreholes, infiltration, and the storage of oils, fuels, and chemicals. So moving on, this full application is for the redevelopment of plot 4200 at Arc, Oxford, a Category 1 employment site allocated for employment use, which proposes to demolish all of the existing 2-storey office buildings and replace them with a 3-storey lab-enabled office building with a gross internal area of 9,829 square metres. The building would accommodate containment level 2 labs with internal ancillary amenity uses and a roof terrace at 3rd floor, 5 single-storey ancillary buildings to store cycles, lab gases and bins, generators, and a substation would be located to the north, south and west of the main laboratory building. The proposed building is long, slender and of a relatively simple form, making an efficient use of the development plot that sits comfortably within the local context. The existing footpath to the south of plot 4200 and included within the application site would be partially widened to create an entrance plaza with enhanced planting, seating and visitor cycle spaces. The gate fronting Boswell Road would be removed, allowing 24-hour public access, and a spur off the footpath would lead directly to plot 4200, providing a shortcut for staff and visitors to the building, but this element of the footpath would be gated. The main pedestrian access to the plot would be via the existing central vehicular access off John Smith Drive, which would be stopped up with the addition of a drop-off bay. Vehicular access is proposed towards the northern and southern boundaries of the site. 166 vehicular surface level parking spaces, including visitor parking and accessible bays, would be provided on site. This is a reduction of 77 spaces when compared to the existing provision, equating to an acceptable mode share of 41.5%. 29% of spaces would be equipped with EV charging, with a condition requiring ducting for 100% of the spaces to meet future need. In terms of cycle parking, 117 spaces would be provided for staff and visitors, exceeding local plan requirements. So these are the site photos. This is the existing vehicular access central to the site off John Smith Drive. This shows the relationship between the existing buildings to dwellings fronting Frederick Road. And this slide here shows the distance between buildings, the blank elevation of number 73A Bailey Road. So there's 20 metres between the elevations here. This is the existing view from Bailey Road. And this is the footpath, the existing footpath that would be widened partially to create an entrance plaza and would lead onto Boswell Road. And this is followed down the footpath, as you can see, where the boundary adjoins the Arc plots. We have this fencing here, but there is closed board fencing adjoining the residential plots. There is a difference, but that's out of Arc's control. And this is the access from Boswell Road. These gates close between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m., but they would be removed as part of the proposal, with amendments made to Boswell Road as part of 278 agreement. So this is the front elevation. The entrance point is legibly marked as the highest part of the building, accommodating internal amenity space on the upper floors. This increased bulk is positioned away from the western edge so as to avoid impacting adjacent residential properties. A palette of high quality external materials are proposed, including buff brick, reconstituted stone, glazed terracotta tiles and bronze coloured metal cladding. The approval of sample panels would be conditioned to ensure high quality is delivered. As a result of pre-application discussions, rear elevations, smaller upper storey windows and bronze coloured metal cladding at the uppermost storey to blend in with the mechanical plant screen.
differentiating it from the lower floors and helping the upper story to read as a rooftop. This approach to the scale, massing and materiality enables a comfortable transition between the commercial typology of the park and the neighbouring 2 to 3 storey dwelling houses. This drawing illustrates the stepped elevations and demonstrates the relationship with residential neighbours. And this section indicates that the nearest upper storey elevation was at approximately 31 metres from the nearest residential rear boundary fence and 55 metres from neighbouring rear elevations, ensuring that privacy would be maintained and a sense of overbearing would be mitigated. Further, this section shows that there is a 1.5 metre change in ground level, helping to reduce the building's impact further. This is a rendered winter view from Bailey Road, highlighting how the rooftop plant treatment has been brought down over the upper storey to break up the built mass and ensure that the plant screen is treated as an integral part of the building design. Again, a result of detailed pre-application discussions. This TVIA view suggests that the uppermost parts of the proposed development would be visible from Grade 1 listed St Mary's Tower. However, the built form would not break the far horizon line of the lower ridge line of the Chiltern Hills. Again, the uppermost parts of the proposed development would be just visible from Grade 1 listed St George's Tower, but would not break the lower ridge line of the Chiltern Hills. The TVIA views indicate that the development would not be visible from Grade 2 listed Carfax Tower, which was also tested. It's considered that the proposed development would be a modest addition to the conservation area's wider setting to the south that would result in a very low level of less than substantial harm to the central conservation area. In accordance with paragraph 206 of the MPPF, it's considered that the pressing need for high-quality lab-enabled office space within this part of the Golden Triangle provides clear and convincing justification for the heritage harm caused. Further, in line with paragraph 208 of the MPPF, the public benefits flow through this development, including the local economic uplift, a commitment to employ a proportion of local residents, enhanced pedestrian and cycle infrastructure, a reduction in car parking provision with a commitment to reduce this further once the Cowley branch line is operational, as well as a 5% net gain in biodiversity within Arc Oxford, a marginal net gain increase in tree canopy cover, and a 45.4% reduction in carbon emissions would collectively outweigh the very low level of less than substantial harm to the setting of the central conservation area. So, in conclusion, officers considered that the proposed development would respond appropriately to the site context, the Oxford Business Park site allocation, and the local plan policies as a whole. It's therefore recommended the Planning Committee approve the application subject to the Section 106 legal agreement and the finalisation of conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Again, we don't have any speakers against, but we've got Mr. Stephen Sensical speaking in support of the application. So you have 5 minutes which to speak. Thank you.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you. In light of that excellent summary from Jennifer and the very comprehensive report that you've got in front of you, I don't intend to talk to the merits of the scheme per se. What I wanted to just to do was to, if you like, introduce Arc Oxford to the committee. Arc Oxford acquired this site in 2021 with their investor Brookfield. They rebranded the site in 2022. They have been discussing and still are discussing their vision for the wider site with officers. We are bringing forward a number of applications in the next 6 to 9 months as we look to reimagine the park and to improve it from what it is, which is a 1990s business park, and to turn it into a science and technology park that is more keeping with today's requirements and with the life sciences and low carbon and digital and knowledge driven sectors that we're now aiming at. So it was simply that really to say we are committed to bringing forward this site as a redevelopment opportunity. This building is the first large new redevelopment plot that we have brought forward. And can I also say that Jennifer mentioned the pre-application discussions. They were very collaborative, very positive, and I think I speak for the clients who are behind me. If not, they'll kick me, I'm sure. But I think it's resulted in a better scheme than the scheme that we started with. And I hope that going forward, that will continue to be the case, that we can work together to produce a business park that is worthy of its location in Oxford, and that will deliver hundreds of new jobs in the coming years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions, either for Jennifer or for Mr. Senticle stage? Louise?
Jennifer, I got slightly confused, because at one point it said, so the gate is being removed, great, making it more permeable and things, but at one point in you said another gate is going in, but I've lost, can't work out what that is.
Off that, I think it's
I don't think you can see the spur very well on this plan, but it's here. So that just leads directly to plot 4,200 for staff and visitors of the site. That part will be gated, but the public will have access from Boswell Road right through to the park.
and that gate it'll be open at certain times.
During operational hours.
Operations, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Chapman?
If I could, Jennifer, please. So just to be absolutely clear, there's a 278 agreement in this proposal, which delivers something like £117,000 of funds to spend on the bus service for the Eastern Arc and travel plan monitoring. But then you said did I hear right? There's quite a significant reduction in the SIL amount.
700,000 or something?
There is a reduction. The SIL team miscalculated.
They just miscalculated.
They miscalculated.
It's as straightforward as that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So
did they do net instead of gross instead of net?
They used the wrong use class.
okay. So this explains why we've lost, in theory, about £700,000 of.
We never had it. We never had it.
We never had it. Yeah, I didn't say in theory. I didn't say in theory.
We're
Right.
putting it up. So,
So okay, that was just. I wanted to be absolutely clear in my head what had happened there. Thank you.
Any, Rosie, councillor Roll.
Thank you. I had a question about a very small part of the application around the biodiversity net gain being 5%, though the law being 10%, but obviously this was submitted beforehand. I just wondered whether there is a question around whether it would be appropriate for it to try and meet the law that has now been in place for a while, or what the precedence of that is.
Well, for a long time, we have been encouraging applicants to achieve the 10%, and in most cases, we've been able to do this, but we can't enforce that. And the application was submitted prior to the 12th of February, so it is acceptable that it's 5%.
Any other questions at this stage? Oh, councillor Hollington.
Yeah, I was slightly thrown by councillor Chapman's question saying that the Eastern Arc bus service was through a 278 agreement. I don't think it is it? Can I just confirm that it isn't? Because that would be quite odd.
No, it's a financial contribution. There is a 278 agreement with regards to the amendments that need to be made on Boswell Road.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Councillor Upton.
one more. So the community employment and procurement plan that they've entered into, that's really good news. Do we have details of how that's going to look? How much detail will you get from them about that?
Helpful, yeah, just to outline this. It's a really good scheme.
So we set out basic requirements in the section 106. So we have a construction CEPP and an end user CEPP, which requires them to employ a certain percentage of, we aim for 10% local apprentices during the construction phase, and then a percentage of work placements given and local residents employed as part of the operational phase. But then it would be down to the applicants to negotiate the finer details with the economic development team prior to commencement.
No, I don't see any other questions at this stage, so shall we move into debate? I understand that this is a speculative application, so there is no identified end user at the moment, but it is going to be lab space, which we know there's a huge increase in demand for that in Oxford, and people who've sat on this committee before know that we've had a number of similar applications for lab space over the last year or two. Okay, so Councillor Hongsworth.
I'll just kick off with a couple of comments on the connectivity, which is really important. I mean, if you were to zoom out from the site plan and look at the broader context of where this site sits and where the enhanced footpath link sits, and zoom out even further, because you won't be able, anyway, it doesn't matter. The end of that footpath leads to Barnes Road and the bus stops on Barnes Road. So this is essentially the best public transport route into the existing business park. So enhancing this, I think, is really positive. It will be good to see exactly what the detail of that 278 agreement is going to deliver in terms of making this an inviting route onto the site. It's always a challenge. It's not in the control of the applicant on one side, obviously, but clearly there is potential there for encouraging even greater public transport and pedestrian access to a site which has been built in the early 90s as a very car-dominated site. And if you go the other way, that path essentially leads almost in a direct line to the proposed Cowley Branch Line station, with the underpass underneath the ring road, which is just there. Yeah. So it's a more or less straight link. So this actually is potentially, while it looks like a small footpath and an inconsequential path, it's actually a really important thing, I think, here that we're looking at in terms of an enhancement. It's a gradualist approach. We've got one step which I'm pleased with, which is the reduction in the car parking, with a second reduction in the car parking to come. I think when we've talked about these kind of applications in the past, we've accepted that this needs to be the route we're going down. You know, the reduction of existing car parking on sites which were designed as car-centric developments is a good thing. It's in keeping with the local plan, which is to make best use of all the assets that we have in terms of land. We haven't got new land, so let's ensure that what we do use for useful things like jobs and whatever, rather than for storage of cars. So I think that's a real positive. And in terms of the design, obviously it is up against, it's in an area of residential houses, so that was a concern, thinking about the heights, but looking at the distances, looking at the setback, looking at the ground level change and so on. And also, you know, that's a pretty low density housing development up there, very typical of its time. It seems to me to be a good step in the right direction and something that's in line with our policies, and therefore I would like to recommend approval with all the relevant conditions and section 278 agreement, which isn't really a condition, attached, and the section 106. So that's the obligation, the section 278 and the conditions as written. Have I missed anything? Yeah. Yes, the spirit of Sally lives on.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that to support? Councillor Coyne, excellent, great, okay, and Councillor Fairweather, okay. Before we move to a vote, are there any more comments that people wish to make beforehand? No, okay. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation to approve this application, please show. Again, I think that's unanimous. Excellent, thank you. In which case, that is passed. And all we need to do now is to move on to the minutes on page 139. Thank you, thank you. I think you can come this way, yeah, that's fine.
Just reminding her.
Oh, that's true, yes, good point, yeah. Yeah, so the last committee meeting was on the 19th of March, because the other one, the one scheduled for April, was cancelled because of any business. So if you've got those in front of you, page 139, if you go through for accuracy and comments. Page 140. Page 141. 142. 143. 144. 145. 146. 147. 148. 149. 150. And 151. Okay, so happy to pass those. I note that that meeting finished at 9:48, so it's quite nice to finish rather earlier tonight. Okay, then for noting are the forthcoming applications. I don't know if anyone wants to comment or say anything about those at this stage, just really for noting. And then item 9 are dates of future meetings. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. Thank you.